I'm a 42-year-old man, married for almost 15 years, 2 kids, mortgage, routines, all the boring things people call stability. If you'd asked me a year ago how my life was, I would have said, good. Not perfect, but solid. My wife still laughed at my stupid jokes. We fought about money and chores, not about love. She liked to say our marriage was strong because we'd been through worse. For most of my adult life, I believed her. This story isn't something I've ever said out loud. Not fully. Not honestly. I'm writing it here because I don't know where else to put it, and because pretending everything is fine is slowly eating me alive. My wife and I met in our late 20s. We built our life together from nothing. No cheating scandals, no dramatic breakups, no big betrayals, at least not that I knew of. We had mutual friends, shared history, inside jokes that only made sense to us. One of those people was my childhood friend. I'll call him Alex. Alex and I have known each other since we were kids. Same street, same school, same stupid dreams. He was always around, birthdays, barbecues, holidays. When I introduced him to my wife years ago, it felt natural. Like bringing family into family. At first, nothing seemed wrong. He was just Alex. Safe. Familiar. Trusted. Looking back now, that trust feels embarrassing. Life felt normal back then. Warm. Predictable. I didn't realize that what I thought was stability was actually blindness, and that the people closest to me were quietly building a world I wasn't part of. And the worst part? She still says our marriage is strong. Alex didn't just drift into our marriage, he was already woven into it. That's what makes this hurt in a way I still can't explain properly. He came over a lot. More than most friends. My wife would text him about random stuff, music, movies, stupid memes. I noticed it, but I didn't notice it, if that makes sense. I trusted both of them. Why wouldn't I? He was practically my brother. She was my wife. There were small things I ignored. Red flags I mentally downgraded to nothing. She laughed differently around him. Louder. Freer. She dressed a little nicer when she knew he was coming over. If I left the room, conversations would suddenly stop. I told myself I was paranoid. Insecure. Middle-aged and dramatic. Sometimes I'd catch them talking late at night on the balcony, cigarettes glowing in the dark. When I asked what they talked about, she'd say, life. Memories. You know Alex? And I did know Alex. Or at least I thought I did. The thing is, nothing physical seemed to be happening. No touching. No obvious flirting. So I dismissed the tension I felt as jealousy. My problem, not theirs. She'd even reassure me without me asking. I love you. You're my person, she'd say. We're solid. Don't be silly. And I believed her. I wanted to. Looking back, I realize how much emotional space she was giving him, space that used to belong to me. She shared worries with him before sharing them with me. Asked his opinion. Valued his approval. At the time, I thought this was just friendship. Adult friendship. Healthy even. Now I know it was the beginning of something else. Something I wasn't supposed to see. The first time I felt real doubt wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No caught-in-the-act moment. Just a quiet, uncomfortable shift in my gut that I couldn't shake. It started with distance. Subtle, but persistent. My wife became harder to reach emotionally. She was still there physically, cooking, helping with the kids, asking about my day, but something was missing. When I talked, she listened with half an ear. When Alex talked, she leaned in. I remember one night lying in bed next to her, scrolling on my phone, while she was smiling at something on hers. Not the polite smile you give at a meme. A soft one. Intimate. I asked what was so funny. Nothing, she said too quickly. Just Alex being Alex. That should have been nothing. But it wasn't. I started noticing how often his name came up. How often she defended him over stupid things. If I joked about him being late or unreliable, she'd snap back like I'd insulted her. I told myself I was projecting. That I was tired. That marriage goes through phases. Everyone says that. Still, I started checking patterns. Who she texted when she was stressed. Who she told first about good news. Who she looked for in a room. It wasn't me. The realization didn't hit all at once. It crept in slowly, like water under a door. And the more I tried to ignore it, the louder it became. I even asked her once, gently, if she felt disconnected from me. She sighed, kissed my forehead, and said, "Stop overthinking. We're fine. Stronger than ever." I wanted to believe that. But something inside me already knew I was standing on cracked ground, and pretending not to hear it breaking. The turning point came in the stupidest, most ordinary way possible. I was looking for a charger. My phone was dead, and I grabbed hers off the kitchen counter without thinking. We'd always had that kind of access to each other's stuff. No passwords, no secrecy. At least, that's what I believed. The screen lit up with a notification before it locked again. "Alex, I still think about that night." My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe he meant a party. A conversation. A joke I wasn't part of. I stood there like an idiot, staring at the phone, heart pounding, arguing with myself. I shouldn't snoop. I deserve clarity. This is nothing. This is everything. My hands were shaking when I unlocked it. The messages weren't graphic. That almost made it worse. Long paragraphs. Inside jokes. Late-night confessions. Things you only say to someone when you feel safe with them. When you want to be close. One message from her hit me hardest. "Being with you feels like coming home." I sat down on the kitchen floor because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. There it was. Not a drunken mistake. Not a one-time slip. This was emotional. Deep. Ongoing. When she walked in and saw me there, holding her phone, she froze. No confusion. No surprise. Just guilt. And that silence told me more than any message ever could. I didn't yell. That's the part that still surprises me. She asked quietly, "How much did you see?" Like I'd stumbled onto something private but harmless. Like I was the one who crossed the line. I asked her what that night meant. She sat down across from me, rubbed her face, and said, "It's not what you think." The most predictable sentence in the history of betrayal. I told her to explain it to me like I was 5. At first, she tried to minimize it. Said it was emotional, not physical. Said nothing, technically, happened. Said they were just talking, connecting, supporting each other in ways that didn't mean anything serious. Then she started crying. Real crying. The kind that makes you feel like a monster for asking questions. She said she felt lonely. That I'd been distant. That Alex understood her. That it wasn't planned. That it just happened. I asked her if she was in love with him. She didn't answer right away. That pause destroyed something in me. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because something inside me snapped. 15 years, 2 kids, a whole life, reduced to I don't know. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. I asked if he loved her. She nodded. I asked how long this had been going on. "Years," she said. "Not like this at first. But a long time." That's when the room started spinning. Because suddenly, I wasn't just reacting to a betrayal. I was realizing I had been living inside a lie for years and calling it home. Anger came later. First there was this hollow quiet inside me, like someone had scooped everything out and left the shell behind. I kept asking the same questions over and over, hoping the answers would change. When did it start? Why him? Did everyone know? Was I the only idiot in the room? She kept saying it wasn't planned. That she never meant for it to go this far. That she still loved me. That our marriage was real, and what she had with Alex was complicated. That word made me lose it. Complicated felt like an insult. Like a fancy way to describe betrayal without owning it. I asked if they'd slept together. She swore they hadn't. Said they crossed emotional lines but stopped short of physical ones. I don't know if that was true. I still don't. And honestly, I don't know which version hurts more. Then came the justifications. How I worked too much. How we'd grown apart. How I didn't see her anymore. How Alex listened. How he made her feel alive. Each sentence felt like she was rewriting our history with me as the villain. I told her she could have talked to me. She said she tried? I don't remember that. At some point, I realized I was shaking. Not from rage, but from fear. Fear that the life I thought I had was already gone, and I was just the last one to get the memo. That night, I slept on the couch. I stared at the ceiling until morning, wondering how love turns into something this unrecognizable without you noticing it happen. The next morning felt unreal, like I was watching my life through fogged glass. She acted almost normal. Made coffee. Asked if I wanted toast. I remember thinking, how are you functioning right now? Meanwhile, I felt like my chest was being slowly crushed. I went to work and did absolutely nothing. Just stared at my screen, reread the same email over and over. Every memory I had was suddenly suspect. Every time Alex had been in our house. Every late night. Every laugh I ignored. By noon, my phone buzzed. It was Alex. "Can we talk?" he wrote. That message broke something else inside me. The audacity of it. Like we were equals in this mess. Like he hadn't been quietly carving a space in my marriage for years. I didn't respond. When I got home, my wife was waiting for me like she'd been rehearsing. She told me Alex was devastated. That he felt terrible. That he never meant to hurt me. I asked her why she was protecting him. She said she wasn't. That she just didn't want things to explode and damage everyone. Everyone except me, apparently. I asked her if she would stop talking to him. She hesitated. Again. That hesitation felt louder than any confession. She said cutting him off completely felt cruel. That he'd been such an important emotional support for her. That she needed time. Time. I realized then that I wasn't just competing with another man. I was competing with years of emotional intimacy I never even knew existed. That night was the first time I seriously thought about leaving. Not dramatically. No packed bags. Just the quiet realization that I didn't feel safe in my own marriage anymore. Not physically, emotionally. Like I was the third wheel in a relationship I helped build. I finally answered Alex's message. One sentence. "Don't contact me again." He replied almost immediately. A wall of text about how he never meant for this to happen, how he respected me, how he loved her but didn't want to destroy my family. Reading it made me nauseous. The hypocrisy of saying you respect someone while actively betraying them is something I'll never understand. I blocked him. When my wife found out, she lost it. Not screaming, crying. Saying I was being extreme. That I was forcing her to choose, instead of letting things settle naturally. That word again. Naturally. I told her she'd already chosen. Over and over. Every message. Every secret conversation. Every time she shared her heart with him instead of me. She said she felt trapped. That she loved us both in different ways. That she didn't want to lose her marriage or him. I asked her where that left me. She didn't have an answer. That night, lying in bed next to her, I felt more alone than I ever have in my life. The woman I married was inches away, breathing softly, and I realized I didn't know her anymore. Or maybe I never really did. All I knew was that whatever we were now, it wasn't the strong marriage she kept insisting we had. The days after that blurred together in a way that still makes my head hurt when I think about it. We existed in this tense ceasefire. No yelling. No resolution. Just careful words and heavy silence. The kids noticed something was off. They always do. My wife said we were just stressed, and I hated that lie almost as much as the truth. I started questioning myself constantly. Was I overreacting? Was emotional betrayal really betrayal if nothing physical happened? She kept leaning on that point like it was a shield. We didn't sleep together, as if that erased everything else. But I could feel how far she drifted. She was physically present but emotionally guarded, like part of her was somewhere else. With him. Or with the idea of him. One night I asked her a question I'd been avoiding. If I hadn't seen those messages, would you have told me? She looked away. That was answer enough. She admitted she'd imagined a life with him. Not planned, she said, just imagined. Different house. Different version of herself. She said it like she was confessing a thought crime, not dismantling our reality. I felt stupid for trusting for so long. For being proud of our boring stability. For thinking loyalty was mutual without ever checking. I started sleeping badly. Waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing, replaying conversations from years ago, wondering how many moments had hidden meanings I missed. The worst part wasn't the jealousy. It was the grief. Grief for the marriage I thought I had, and the man I thought I was inside it. The confrontation with Alex happened a week later, and it wasn't planned. I ran into him at a grocery store. Of all places. He looked thinner. Nervous. Like he'd been rehearsing apologies in his head nonstop. He said my name like he still had a right to it. I didn't punch him. I didn't yell. I just stood there, hands shaking, trying not to fall apart in public between the frozen foods and cereal aisle. He started talking immediately. How he never meant to cross a line. How feelings crept up on him. How he loved her but also valued our friendship. That sentence made my vision go blurry. I asked him one thing. Did you ever think about me? He paused. Then he said, I tried not to. That answer destroyed any lingering illusion I had left. Because it meant he knew exactly what he was doing. I told him to stay away from my family. From my wife. From my kids. I told him if I ever saw him near them again, I wouldn't be responsible for how I reacted. He nodded, like I was the one being unreasonable. When I got home, I told my wife everything. She cried again. Said I scared her. Said I was changing. That anger didn't suit me. I wanted to scream that betrayal doesn't suit me either. That was the moment I realized how alone I really was in this. Everyone was worried about feelings, except mine. After that, something shifted in me. Not healing. Not acceptance. Just numbness. I stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't care, but because every answer hurt, and none of them fixed anything. I went through the motions of daily life like a ghost. Work, kids, dinner, sleep. Repeat. My wife noticed. Of course she did. She said I was shutting her out. That I was building walls instead of trying to repair things. The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. She suggested couples therapy. Said we needed a safe space to talk. I agreed, mostly because I didn't know what else to do and because saying no felt like admitting the marriage was already dead. In therapy, she cried. A lot. Talked about confusion. About unmet needs. About how she never stopped loving me. The therapist nodded sympathetically and asked me how I felt. I didn't know how to answer without sounding cruel. How do you explain that love doesn't feel like enough anymore? That trust, once cracked, changes the shape of everything? When it came out that she was still occasionally thinking about Alex, the therapist gently suggested processing those feelings without acting on them. I wanted to stand up and leave. Because that's when it hit me. I was fighting for a marriage while she was grieving another relationship. One she was never supposed to have. That realization settled into my chest like a weight. I started wondering if staying was brave, or just fear disguised as loyalty. The pressure started coming from places I didn't expect. Her sister told me I needed to fight for my family. A mutual friend said marriages go through phases and I shouldn't throw everything away over emotions. Even my own mother, after hearing a watered-down version, said, "At least she didn't sleep with him." It felt like everyone had an opinion on my pain, and none of them actually had to live inside it. At home, my wife was suddenly trying harder. Cooking my favorite meals. Touching my arm when she walked past. Initiating sex like it was proof of commitment. And I hated myself for how confusing that was. Part of me wanted to believe her effort meant something. Another part felt like I was being managed, not loved. During one argument, she finally said it out loud. "I chose you," she said. "I'm still here." I asked her why that sounded like a consolation prize. She got angry then. Said I was punishing her. That I enjoyed holding this over her head. That if I couldn't forgive, I should just leave. That word, forgive, was thrown at me like a switch I could flip. Like forgiveness was a favor I owed instead of something that grows slowly, if at all. That night I realized I was starting to resent her. Not just for what she did, but for how she expected me to recover on her timeline. I missed the version of myself who trusted easily. Who felt secure in his own home. I didn't know how to get him back, or if I ever could. I started pulling away in small, quiet ways before I even admitted it to myself. I stayed late at work. Took longer routes home. Sat in my car for 10 minutes before going inside, just breathing and bracing myself. Home no longer felt like a place to rest, it felt like a negotiation. My wife noticed, of course. She asked if I was having an affair. The question stunned me. Not because it was insulting, but because it showed how broken our baseline had become. Trust was no longer assumed. It was questioned. I told her no. I didn't have the energy, the desire, or the heart for that. What I didn't say was that part of me had already emotionally checked out, and that scared me more than anything else. I stopped sharing my thoughts with her. Not as punishment, but because every time I opened up, it somehow circled back to her pain, her confusion, her guilt. My feelings became side notes. Some nights I lay awake imagining a different life. Not even with someone else, just alone. Quiet. Honest. A place where I didn't have to doubt every smile or wonder who she was thinking about when she closed her eyes. I caught myself feeling relieved when she wasn't home. That's when I knew something fundamental had changed. I wasn't angry all the time anymore. I was tired. And that felt more dangerous. Anger can burn out. Exhaustion just settles in and becomes who you are. I started asking myself a question I'd been avoiding since the beginning. If nothing ever got better, if this was as strong as our marriage would ever be again, could I live the rest of my life like this? I didn't like the answer forming in my chest. The decision didn't come with clarity or relief. It came on a random Tuesday afternoon, while I was folding laundry. I realized I was folding her clothes with more care than I felt toward myself. That was it. That was the moment. I wasn't dramatic about it. I didn't accuse or explode. I just told her I needed space. Real space. Not sleeping on the couch space. Not, "Let's see how it goes," space. She panicked. Said this wasn't fair. Said we were supposed to be healing. Said I was giving up right when things were finally stabilizing. But that word, stabilizing, made me sad. Like the best-case scenario was emotional damage control instead of love. I moved into a small apartment nearby. The kids stayed with her during the week, with me on weekends. Telling them was the hardest thing I've ever done. I kept it vague. Mom and Dad need time. I hate that sentence. She called me constantly at first. Crying. Apologizing. Promising things would be different. Saying she finally understood what she'd risked losing. And maybe she did. But understanding something after it's broken doesn't magically fix it. I wasn't leaving because I stopped loving her. I was leaving because staying meant slowly disappearing, and I'd already lost too much of myself trying to hold everything together. Walking out felt like failure. Staying felt like erasure. I chose the one that at least let me breathe. It's been months now. People keep asking if we're getting back together. If this is temporary. If I've forgiven her yet. I never know how to answer without sounding bitter or broken, so I usually just shrug and say, "We're figuring things out." The truth is, Messier. We still talk. About the kids. About logistics. Sometimes about us. She still insists our marriage was strong, that what happened didn't erase what we built. And maybe she's right, maybe it was strong in its own way. But strength doesn't make you immune to betrayal. Sometimes it just means you endure more before you finally break. I don't hate her. That surprises me. I'm sad. Disappointed. Changed. I look at love differently now. I understand how easily lines blur, how emotional intimacy can quietly turn into something dangerous while everyone tells themselves it's harmless. I also see my own mistakes. How I assumed loyalty instead of nurturing connection. How I thought love was self-sustaining once established. I live with that guilt, even though I know it doesn't excuse what she did. Alex is gone from our lives. Completely. That's the one boundary I never compromised on. Still, his shadow lingers in ways I can't explain. In my hesitation. In my distrust. In the way I flinch at certain silences. Some nights I miss her. Other nights I miss who I was before all this. I don't know if this story has a clean ending. Maybe some don't. Maybe the lesson is just this: if someone tells you everything is fine, but your gut says otherwise, listen. Denial is quiet. The truth isn't. And you don't always survive it unchanged.